Coming up on Racing to Real Estate, we got a great show for you. Very special guest, Larry McReynolds. We're going to dive into all topics NASCAR, and also we're going to have a market update and talk interest rates. Stay tuned. Racing to Real Estate starts right now.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Josh Tucker. This is our co-host, John Roberts. This is Racing to Real Estate, brought to you by Duckworths. And we are in the offices of Anchor Real Estate here in Mooresville, North Carolina.
The cozy offices.
The cozy offices. Yeah, we love our humble abode here. So we're going to have a lot of fun today, John. A little bit later, we're going to have Larry McReynolds.
Looking forward to that.
On the show. So that's going to be a lot of excitement, talking to him about NASCAR, breaking down Dover, talking a little bit about Talladega.
In the future, too.
In the future, we got some fan questions that we're going to answer. That reminds us, if you are watching the show and you want questions asked or answered on the show, follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we are on Twitter. You can message us on any of those channels. You can ask us questions using hashtag R2RE, or you can email us at racing2realestate@gmail.com.
We're very easy to find.
We want to be very easy to find. And John, speaking about easy to find, let's jump into real estate and talk a little bit about this past week. A big week for us here at Anchor Real Estate. We had a couple of big closings. I reached out to our clients earlier today. They said it was okay for us to use their name.
Okay.
So we're excited about that. We were able to help David and Michelle Gilliland sell a big property up in Sherrilsford.
Yeah, and the process that goes on, sometimes people, you look at something and you say, oh, that was quick and that was easy. The easy part for us is going to the closing. That's the fun part. But we start with a marketing plan when we have somebody come to us. We give them a listing presentation. We start with a plan. With their property in Sherrilsford, it was a big, very unusual property. So we made a big, unique marketing plan for it. And it all came to fruition. And when it comes down to a day like that, when you have two big closings, all the work comes together. And yeah, there's a payoff at the end of it, but there's a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah. And talking about unique marketing, that property, I think, as we had mentioned on a previous show, had been on the market for a long time.
And 3 years?
A few years they've been trying to sell that with a few different agents. I think Anchor Real Estate was the fourth brokerage to come on board. And we knew we needed to do something different. We knew we needed to expose it to a different audience. We did a lot of cool videography and cinematography with horses and people and a lot of fun, and I think it really helped. What a fun project to work on up there. And a couple of quick stats. We called that home Five Oaks.
Yeah.
It was also known as the Neil Turner Lester House, but
it's very historic.
Yeah, so that was the fifth highest of all time in the history of the MLS, the fifth highest home to resell. So over $2 million. We won't say the exact sales price, but over $2 million, and the fifth highest of all time, and the highest to resell in more than 5 years.
Yeah.
So pretty cool.
It
just goes to show that not a lot of homes in that marketplace sell at that. So we're not taking anything away from the previous people that were trying to sell. It's a tough market. It's a tough market at that price point there. And we were fortunate enough to find a buyer for it rather quickly, I think.
20 days.
Yeah.
Had it under contract in 20 days and then closed down the line. But again, the bottom line here is there's a lot that goes into these, and we'd love a chance to help any of you guys out do the same thing. If you have an unusual property or a very small property, we handle everything the same way with the same marketing and enthusiasm because we want to treat everybody the same.
Yeah, and just a quick story. So David Gilliland was up in Dover racing his son Todd, who hopefully we're going to have both of them on the show here this year. I think they're both interested. We're just trying to work schedules out.
Yeah, they're busy.
They're busy people. But so David was up there when we did the closings. So Michelle, his wife, had power of attorney. So she was signing for him. We did 2 closings in one day. So we sold their home in Sherrilsford. They also purchased a new home in Rowan County. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And as we were doing the second closing, they are, as you know, big into farms and animals. They have a lot of miniature ponies and miniature horses.
One that looks like Rod Stewart, actually.
Yeah, and named after Rod Stewart.
It's named Rod Stewart.
One of their miniature horses was pregnant, and the horse had her baby during the closing. So Michelle was really excited about that. They named the horse Lily, so the horse's name is Lily Gilly. It was pretty exciting. So fun times for them. It was a great week, great helping them out. What stand-up people and so a lot of fun. The other big thing when it comes to real estate, John, that just wanted to touch on quickly, and you and I had talked a little bit about this, is interest rates.
Yeah. What's the headlines you're seeing right now across any type of business channel or business publication right now says that interest rates are the highest they've been in 7 years, that the market is influencing and they're going back and forth. But what that still means is if you just look at the headlines, you could say, okay, red flag is up. This is trouble. But it's really not if you look at it, no. Josh. We're still getting, a troubled mortgage. If you have problems getting a mortgage, it's still a little bit above 5%. Your average mortgage is a little bit below 5% right now. So when you look at that, it's really, it still is really a very good time to be involved in the real estate market because, yes, it's the highest in 7 years, but we've had 7 years of boom, and we continue to see it, and we're hoping to have more.
Yeah, and I think when we look at that over a longer period, highest in 7 years, but we're coming off of the worst recession our country has seen in a long time, if not forever.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at it over a longer period of time, historically, 5% mortgage on a fixed 30-year
still so low. It's still such a great investment.
So don't panic. Don't worry. Right?
Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry. Be happy.
Yeah. Don't worry. Be happy. It's still great interest rates. If you can finance a large sum of money over 30 years and pay 5% fixed interest,
you're doing all right.
That's a great deal, right? So. What else, John? Anything else in real estate big?
Well, the fact of the matter is that houses are still selling. There's still a low inventory on the market right now. We're still struggling to find houses to sell. There's more buyers out there. So prices are going up slightly, but they're cooling off a little bit as the temperatures cool off a little bit. It happens almost every year.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about cooling off, we aren't going to cool off here in a minute. We're going to heat things up with Larry Mack.
Way up.
So we're really excited to get him on the show. So let's go ahead and transition over to the NASCAR side. Let's take a quick break here from our sponsor, Duckworths, and we'll be back in just a few seconds with Larry McReynolds.
Duckworths Grill and Tap House is your neighborhood restaurant. Good food, good friends, a huge selection of craft beers on tap, not to mention the weekly and daily food specials. 5 locations in the Charlotte metro area. Make sure to go down and check out your local Duckworths. And welcome back once again, everybody. This is Racing to Real Estate. And Josh, we got a special guest with us. It's my old buddy Larry McReynolds. It's so good to see you, man.
It's good to be here.
Hanging out with you yesterday. So here's how long I've known Larry McReynolds. When we first met, he had hair, and my hair was brown. So that'll tell you, Josh, how long we've known each other. Back in the Baby Allison days.
I don't get much into the hair conversations. Yeah. DW used to ride me pretty hard about that, and one time on air he said something about me being follically challenged, and I said, you're right, DW. I do lose a little bit more each year we come back, but the good news about mine, unlike some people I know, mine comes back the same color every single year. So, and he never said another word about hair from that point on.
So we can leave the hair aside. Hey, speaking about the difference between old guys and young guys, how cool was it really to see Mr. Chase Elliott get that victory in Dover?
Well, it's almost to me unraveling exactly how we thought it would. He kept finishing second and second and second and second. It was almost getting the point. Can he close the deal? And we know Hendrick Motorsports, the Chevrolet camp, they've been a little bit behind the 8 ball all year long, but he gets that first win at Watkins Glen, and then I think just his confidence level it goes up because I can't speak from a driver's standpoint, but I speak from a crew chief standpoint. I was a crew chief for 3 or 4, close to 5 years before I ever got my very first win. And it's almost like until you do it, that voice just constantly haunts you. Can you really win? Can you really win? And I will say, once you win, the voice comes back and says, okay, smart aleck, can you win a second one? But I couldn't think of a better place for Chase to go in there and seal the deal a second time. I know he wanted to win an oval race, of course, Dover being an oval. But if you look at his record at Dover, in his 5 previous starts there, 4 top 5s. He finished 12th in the spring and just dominated the race a year ago and let a late race restart beat him. Kyle Busch beat him. Yep. And how ironic it is that a restart yesterday actually sealed the deal for him.
Yeah, and Josh, you spent a little bit of time in victory lane as a crew member, so you know what that's like, how big it is to win.
It is. And I can't tell you how many great friends I have in the sport that have been in the sport for 5, 8, 10 years and yet to visit victory lane. So how special it is to, for Chase and for all them guys on the team. I know a lot of them people, that's where I got out of racing. When I left racing, I left with Hendrick Motorsports, so I know a lot of those guys over there, and it's really cool to see a lot of those guys be able to celebrate with Chase and for him to get his second win there at Dover.
And to move on to the next round. That locks him into the round of 8. So he doesn't have to worry about Talladega, especially Arkansas. He's in.
And he can take some risks and try to gain some stage points, or some points, some playoff points moving forward, because that's kind of the area he's lacking in.
Yes.
So, I mean, he needs to focus the next 2 races, be excited that he's in and he's making it to the round of 4, but at the same time, or the round of 8. But at the same time, try to focus on getting a few stage points to, or playoff points to kind of build that cushion a little bit. As we move forward, the rounds get tougher and tougher to make your way through.
And we saw at the Charlotte Roval, the end of round 1, how precious every single position, every single stage point, every single playoff point. I don't know if you can put a price on the importance when you look back at the Charlotte Roval, the final race of round 1 having 3 drivers tied and after 3 races, and it's amazing how much each point means.
Yeah, that's what NASCAR wanted. They wanted everything to mean more throughout the season. So really, when you look back, every lap, every position on the racetrack means something, so you got to say to NASCAR, mission accomplished.
Absolutely, no question. I think we all knew shortly into this whole system with the playoffs, the elimination, the stage racing, that it had a good feel about it. But you got to say now, almost 2 years into it, absolutely a home run.
Yep. Josh, let's talk about Christopher Bell.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really cool to see him win there in Dover on Saturday. And what was really cool was I heard that made him the most winningest rookie in the Xfinity Series with 6 wins. So that's a big story for him.
Well, and to me, the underlying thing that goes with his success right now, and I couldn't be happier, is Jason Ratcliffe, his crew chief.
Absolutely.
Jason, a winning crew chief in the Cup Series. Of course, when things changed over there with the 20 car and Eric Jones coming and bringing his crew chief with him from Furniture Row, Jason was moved to the Xfinity Series, and I think it's a perfect match to take a young, aggressive driver like Christopher Bell, who I don't even think we've still seen remotely his talent, and to put him with someone like Jason Ratcliffe. I think it's been a great combination, and they're definitely going to be a force to reckon with as we move on to the next round, and I think especially down at Homestead Miami Speedway in November.
Yeah, future looks bright, though. When you look at these young stars, Chase Elliott and Christopher Bell, we have a very bright future. And last 2 races have been won on the Cup level by what so-called young guns, and really the stars of tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think that's going to only continue. It's a few years ago, knowing where a lot of our veteran drivers were at the ages they were, closing in on the age of 40, I guess there was a part of me that was a little concerned. There's the old George Jones song, "Who's going to fill their shoes?" I was like, I don't know if we have enough talent to fill these shoes. But if you look at the influx of young talent in Cup, Xfinity, and even the Truck Series, and even the series below that, the biggest problem I think we have now, there's not enough room at the end. We've got more young talent than we have seats to put them in, which is, I guess, a great problem to have.
Yeah, because remember, driver development for years, that was a big thing. All these teams looked at driver development, looked at finding the next young guy. And then the term driver development was replaced by whose daddy has the most money.
Yes.
Now it's trending back again.
It is, especially I think once you get to the Cup level. I think when you look at the K&N East and West Series, the ARCA Series, even trucks, it's still about who can bring the sponsor, who can bring the check. A little bit still even in Xfinity. I don't want to dilute what Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kyle Busch do for those two series. But I do chuckle when I hear giving young drivers an opportunity. No. You're giving young drivers an opportunity that brings a check through that door. So don't give me this giving young drivers opportunity. I'm not biting into that. And I'm a little bitter because I do have a son that races who I think is a talented young little driver.
He won recently?
Won 2 weeks ago up in Loudon, New Hampshire in the K&E Series. Finished a very close second this past weekend at Dover. But because we can't write that check, owners won't even give you the time of day. And I've definitely seen that transition. I always use Richard Childress as an example. I was still at RCR when he kind of latched on to Kevin Harvick. And he marched Kevin into his marketing and sales group. This was in the late 90s, which was a much smaller group than what they have up there today, and says, I want to race this guy. Find me a sponsor. Now Richard walks into that same group and says, find me a kid that's got a sponsor. Yeah. So it's definitely made a turn.
Yeah, but up and coming talent as well in the truck series, and after a break, it's difficult. The truck series doesn't run. I mean, they got to stretch fewer races over this span of the season. So now they're getting back at it at Talladega, but they've been off for a while. So it's kind of almost easy to forget what went on.
Got to get back in the swing of things.
Yeah,
and that's not just for the driver. I think I was a car chief in the truck series for a couple of seasons, and that's kind of hard for crew guys and for everybody to kind of, they're coming off of a 3-week off break, and that's a long time to take. Yeah, you kind of lose rhythm a little bit.
I really believe NASCAR, and this is not something that has just happened this year. It has always been an ongoing issue with the truck series. I like the fact that their schedule is only, I think, 22 races. I think we possibly, with the Cup Series, even Xfinity, we race too much.
Yeah.
But for them to start at Daytona and go to Homestead the same length of schedule as the Cup and Xfinity, but have all these gaps. They have so many gaps in the beginning of their season. They have so many gaps at the end. And honestly, I think that's a little bit hard for the fan. If you take that casual fan, they have no idea when they're racing. Are they going to race again next week? Is it going to be next month? And I really believe this. And I think it's good they start at Daytona. I think it's good they end at Homestead. But they've got to fix all these big, huge gaps.
Yeah, maybe instead of having 2 or 3 big breaks, it would be cool if there would be a way for them to have much smaller breaks and have more off weekend. The same amount of off weekends, but spread them out.
Right. Yes.
In between races rather than having
big gaps are strange. But then again, they have the great unknown though coming up here. Their great unknown is Talladega.
This is their race.
Their cutoff. Their elimination race.
So what do we got? We got Justin Haley and Grant Enfinger have won truck races in the first 2, so they're locked in. And now we've got somebody vying for that final spot, and I think they have a total of 8, and it goes down to 6. So it should be a nail biting race for those truck guys for sure.
I love the fact that it's a cutoff race. I liked it a few years ago when Talladega was the cutoff race for the Cup Series.
I did too.
Good old Drivers Council went in there and got that changed, and. But I think the cutoff race should be a dramatic race, just like it was at the Charlotte Roval. No question.
It got eyes on the sport for sure, and it goes back to the thing we often talk about in racing. What's good for the fan is not necessarily good for the driver. Usually they butt heads. Usually they're opposite.
Bill France Jr. had a great saying, and I loved it. I use it a lot because I truly believe it. If the drivers don't like it, it's probably the best thing we can do for the sake of the sport.
There's probably a lot of truth to that.
No question there is.
Yeah, absolutely. So quickly, and I know we've kind of recapped, all 3 series. I just want to quickly go back to Dover and just a couple of quick points that, I thought were big headlines. Jimmy Johnson's pre-race, I call it pre-race trouble.
Yeah.
Very uncharacteristic of that team.
Yeah.
A 7-time champion over, 84 Cup wins, and they go out and they don't even make the green flag. And I understand parts fail. That's there's nothing that the average person can do about that. But very uncharacteristic and unfortunate for somebody that had, I feel like, a lot of momentum. Coming in, even though he had his downfalls at the Roval. A lot of momentum coming in, a lot of eyes around him to not make the green flag had to be.
Dover has been a weird racetrack for that group. Yeah, they've won 11 races, but think back. I think it was maybe 3 years ago when they were in contention to move on to the next round. It's when Dover was an elimination race from round one, and they had a rear axle seal fail. So they've had Dover can be hard on parts and pieces. And this morning I've already been trying to dig into that. I wanted to know how many laps they ran in practice, and they ran 101 laps in practice. And I know the fans are asking, just like we're asking, how could that slip through? Well, we'll probably never know, because we know Chad Knaus and that group, they keep everything close to the vest. They're not going to come out and say this was the failure. But what I could pick up on bits and pieces, it was a cracked lower ball joint. And, of course, the lower ball joint goes in the lower control arm and up through the spindle. And that's a part that probably never got touched on race morning. You can't see it. It's kind of encased in everything, as you well know. And so they may say, well, how did they still not pick up on it? Well, if I was a guessing person, and that's all I'm doing, is evidently at the very end of that final practice on Saturday, it probably started fatiguing, maybe even getting a small crack, and it showed up in none of their checks and balances on scales or whatever race morning. But a car at Dover is even loaded under pace laps. And if he was swerving that car back and forth trying to get heat in his tires, that's probably when it reared its head, and it's very unfortunate.
Gosh, you just don't see it very often.
It's rare.
It's very rare to see.
One in a million that would happen again.
Green flag like that.
One in a million.
It's pretty weird. Other than that, I thought Dover was a good race. The first two stages a little bit dull, but still good passing and
good passing.
Good fun to watch. And then the third stage, obviously, a lot of excitement. Seems like the final stage of these last handful of races have been crazy exciting. So
a few of my takeaways, I guess, from Dover is as I watched it, I listed out all the playoff drivers, the 12 that had an issue, and the list is long. It's easier to name the playoff drivers that didn't have an issue. Even Chase Elliott had an early uncontrolled tire. You had speeding penalties. You had the track bar issue going on with Kyle Busch in the 18 car. Kevin Harvick with the loose wheel, who just like in the spring was dominating that race. And we don't have a crystal ball. We don't live in a what-if world, but if he does not have that happen, he's probably going to get his 8th win of the year and move on. And the one surprise, Kyle Larson just did not run well.
Especially
and that's
for as well as he was off the track.
He was the favorite going into that
fastest
thing.
In every single practice, but just never really fought to stay on the lead lap most of the day. So that was just a few of the takeaways. But there's living proof that unlike a football game, a baseball game that's a runaway, you better not turn a NASCAR race off and get a checker flag.
You better watch the whole thing.
I don't think anybody thought Chase Elliott was going to be the guy to walk away with that win.
I think you're right. Well, Larry, do you got time to stick around for a few more minutes?
Absolutely.
We got questions.
We got a couple. Your questions? We got a couple of viewer questions.
My time is your time, Mr.
Well, we like that.
And if we want to hear your questions, it's hashtag R2RE on any of our social platforms, Facebook, email, any way we want to hear your questions.
Yeah, so email is racing2realestate@gmail.com. You can email us there. As John said, hashtag R2RE. You can also message us on our Facebook, on our Instagram, on our Twitter. So plenty of ways to get a hold of us. We do not hide.
And you can say whatever you want about us, really, right?
Yeah, we want to hear questions about racing, about real estate, or anything else that you want to talk about. So we've got multiple questions. We're going to go through 2 of them today. And Larry, fitting that you're here, they're both racing questions, so we're going to bring you into
Don't
the
ask me a real estate question.
we want
interest rates, anything like that? We already took care of that.
Okay, so number one question, Brett from Jacksonville, Florida, has a great question. He says, what are your thoughts on the new rule package, and do you think that every race will now have the big one? So I guess relating to what you see at Talladega and Daytona.
Multiple car wreck.
No, and it's, Brett, that's a great question. And I could understand where you would think now that we're going to have big packs of cars. That was not the goal of this rule package, and I don't think that's what we're going to have. There were several goals behind this rules package, and as we talked about on race day this past Sunday, I like what they've done. Is it the right package for every single one of the 24 different tracks we go to? Probably not. I don't know if it's going to hurt the racing at any of the tracks, but I don't think you're going to see major differences in every track we go to. I don't know if it's going to make a big difference in short tracks or maybe in road courses. Honestly, I think Daytona and Talladega, it's probably going to be very similar to what we have right now. But the goal was, with the large amount of downforce and drag they've put in these cars now, it's just like when you're in a boat on a lake and you see the wake behind it. What they're trying to do is make that wake bigger, where it does not affect that car, the trail car, as much, and it's all about creating more passing. I go back to what we saw in the All-Star race at Charlotte in the Cup Series, and this package, with a few tweaks, is very similar. When I went up and watched the very first practice that weekend, we didn't cover it because it was early in the morning because everything got rained out on Friday, but I was up there watching. My first feeling was, I like what I see, but we need a little more power. We only had about 450 horsepower. That's exactly what NASCAR has done at the Darlington and bigger tracks. They've given a bigger tapered spacer, no restrictor plate. It's going away, period. And it's going to have about 550 horsepower. So the goal is not to create bigger packs of racing, and I don't think it's going to do that, which I don't think we'll have the big one every single week, but it's to create more passing. And the biggest thing, for us explaining it, for the fan, unless you get down on your hands and knees and look to see in the front end if it's open air ducts or brake ducts, or you pull the throttle body off and see what size tapered spacer, every car will look the same. The Martinsville car will look just like the Roval car. It'll look just like the Talladega car. So that's what I like, is consistency, that we don't have to explain all these different packages, even though that's what I do on the broadcast. We don't have to explain all the different packages week after week after week.
Yeah, and people have been saying for years, I remember Rusty Wallace in the late 80s, saying, let's slow these suckers down a little bit, they're going to race better. And I think, the fan loves that 200 mile an hour mark. You love to hear 200 miles an hour because it sounds sexy. But when you talk about one car being able to pass another, if you slow it down, remember Carl Edwards explained it really well, that when you're at a mile and a half and you're going 200 miles an hour into a corner, the driver can only think about holding the car. He can't think about passing.
Now, racing is speed, and I get that. And I know that's what the fans, they don't want to hear we're slowing the cars down. But I go back to that All-Star race. I was so engaged in that race. I could not have told you if they were driving off in the corner at 210 or 160. It didn't matter because we were seeing great racing. Now, it may dilute qualifying a little bit because the speeds may not be what we've seen at tracks before. But I will say this package just got tested last week at Phoenix, and the speeds were actually up because they're going through the corners faster. They got a lot more downforce. So I don't know. It's like I said on race day, let's give it a chance. Before the announcement even came out, people were shooting holes in it left and right. It's like, as I say on race day, pump the brakes. Let's give it a shot, and you might be surprised what we actually see with this.
And I agree. And, I think that I was listening, it might have even been on Sirius satellite radio. I was listening, and Joey Logano was on there Friday morning from Dover, and they were asking him about the rules package. And he said something that kind of, struck home with me. He said, hey, look, I wasn't always for this package, but they've announced it. It is what it is. And I applaud NASCAR for change, for trying something. And look, if it don't work a year from now or 2 years from now, we'll try something different. But at the end of the day, the drivers, they're still holding a steering wheel. They still have a brake and a gas pedal that they have to operate, so it's still in their hands.
And all 40 got the same thing, right?
And they're on equal terms. So.
And I want to caution the fans. If you expect to go to 36 races next year and see a side-by-side battle as the checkered flag is being waved, I'm sorry, you're going to be disappointed.
Right.
And I know it gets magnified because unlike stick and ball sports, we only have one event a week. I go back to this past weekend. Okay, the Carolina Panthers, they beat the New York Giants with a game-ending field goal, a 63-yard field goal.
Amazing
but if you change the channel, Pittsburgh was beating the living hell out of the Atlanta Falcons, which is good for the Panthers.
Yeah.
So I guess case in point, if you think you're going to see that Game 7 moment every week, you're not going to. But I think with NASCAR in the Cup Series, it gets magnified because we don't have 16 games going on every weekend. We have one event. So, but I'm optimistic. I've not had a drink of the Kool-Aid. They didn't stick me in a hole and drip water on my head. I do believe this is going in the right direction.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. But great question, Brett, and hopefully that answered your question. That was a good discussion around that. Off to question number 2. Robin from Nashville, Tennessee asks, or makes a statement and then has a question. She says, it was cool seeing Jeff Gordon in Victory Lane with Rick Hendrick this weekend at Dover. And she asked, do you think that we will ever see Jeff again racing in NASCAR, maybe a truck or an Xfinity car?
Well, first of all, it was cool to see him. And we do know that Jeff still has his hand very close to the pulse over there at Hendrick Motorsports. And I couldn't think of a better guy. Jeff has been an amazing teammate for the last 3 years. You know, when he came on board with us with NASCAR on Fox and FS1, I had no idea what to expect. I really didn't know Jeff Gordon, but he has been an absolute amazing teammate. Not that I ever questioned how he won 93 races and 4 championships, but after working with him, it makes a whole lot more sense. He is tenacious. But I do believe that the ship has sailed on him driving a race car again.
Yeah,
now,
he's not going to race again.
That doesn't mean that he may not do like the 24 hours of Daytona in a Rolex car, something like that. But as far as I think Cup, Xfinity trucks, that unfortunately not going to happen.
Yeah, and one thing about Jeff is I've always noticed throughout his career, I mean, I remember when he had the mustache and the mullet and was sharing an apartment with with another driver. He just does everything right. Yes. I mean, everything he does is right. His TV commercials are right. His driving was right. His foundation was right. I mean, he just does things right.
Well, what I love about him as a teammate, and this is what I loved about different drivers that I worked with throughout my career, is Jeff Gordon drives me. I mean, I will get a text from him at 10:30 at night going, hey, do you know so-and-so is doing this? Have you ever looked into this? And I love that because that drives me. Teammate. And he's been a great teammate. And, you know, I think it's always the question looms, could he be the heir to take over and guide the ship at Hendrick Motorsports? I think he'd be an amazing guy to do that. Not to take anything away from Marshall Carlson, who is Rick's son-in-law, does an amazing job on the business side. But I think for someone to run one of these teams today, they need to be a racer. Yeah. And obviously Jeff Gordon is a racer. Now, the selfish side of me, I hope not. I want him to continue to do the Fox broadcast. And that's not saying he can't do both. And when you look at the way our schedule's structured, where we only go from Daytona in mid-February to Sonoma the end of June, I guess it's doable. Mm-hmm. But there's no question he'd be an amazing guy to run a race team.
And such a team player and a relationship builder. You know, when I was at Hendrick, I was never on the 24. I was in the 488 shop at that time. We had the 48 and the 88. They were in one building. The 5, the 24 were in another building. I know they've shaken that structure up a little bit now and moved some things around, but just because Jeff and the 5 car were in the other building, we seen Jeff in the 488 shop just as much as he was over there. And he was, when Jimmy or when Dale Jr. won a race, Jeff was right there behind pulling the little wagon around with the bell, ringing it with the guys and celebrating. So the guy, he's a great team builder. He's a great relationship person. And I think he would potentially be a great fit to, fill some bigger role at Hendrick Motorsports, if that's, whatever that might be. And then that kind of starts leading you into, what would would there be other models that follow in them footsteps? If say 3 years from now or 5 years from now we see Jeff filling a bigger role at Hendrick Motorsports,
being the front person,
the front person being the main man, does that open doors for? Because let's face it, we don't have a lot of young owners in the NASCAR series.
We'd like to clone them all. We'd like them around forever, but.
Yeah,
it just doesn't happen.
So does a Matt Kenseth or somebody that's kind of made it known, hey, I'm stepping away from the driving side, but I still want to be involved. Does that, does he see what Jeff does with Hendrick and then try to position himself to do something like that with Ross?
And what Tony Stewart did.
Absolutely.
I remember, Larry, we were at Chicagoland Speedway, and a lot of people, and mostly just had a pen and a computer in the media room, said, man, this Tony Stewart guy, he has lost his mind. He's going to leave Joe Gibbs Racing where he won a championship, and he's going to go there, and look how tough it was on Darrell Waltrip to run his own team, and look how tough it was on Ricky Rudd to run his own team. And I said, guys, pump the brakes.
Yeah.
This is Tony Stewart, and he is pairing up with Gene Haas. So you are putting a championship driver with a guy with very deep pockets and business sense, and look what happened. They won a championship.
Several. And I look at all of our major organizations, and maybe other than Tad Geschechter, and not to take away from any of the owners that run some of the lower tier teams.
Yeah.
But other than Tad Geschechter, Tony Stewart, none of our Cup owners are young guys.
Right.
You look at Jack Roush, you look at Richard Petty, you look at Roger Penske, you look at Richard Childress, Joe Gibbs. Yep. And I realize they all have people in the main office that are their president. Almost all of them have a president of the operation that's not them. But when I look at those people, they're not racers. And I think that's where, to your point, someone like Jeff Gordon, someone like Matt Kenseth, and the list goes on and on if the desire was there, that I think you got to have a racer. I say this cautiously, but to me, that's something that NASCAR has to look at. Bill France Jr. was a racer.
Yep.
And he guided this ship, and he guided this ship well. Not to take anything away from Steve Phelps, who now is the new president of NASCAR, Steve O'Donnell, all of these people. They do an amazing job behind the desk of guiding the sport, but we need a racer. We need somebody that has been in that garage, that has been in these trenches, that can relate and understand what's going on out there on that racetrack. I think it's something that's missing from the sport of NASCAR.
Yeah, no, I do too.
I think Ray Evernham would be the perfect guy to do that, to fill that role.
Yeah, absolutely.
Said that
Talk
many
about
times.
A guy who knows.
Yeah, he's definitely been in the trenches and had
trenches.
tons of success, a lot of championships and a lot of wins, and all of his everything that he accomplished with bringing Dodge, back into
He's
the sport.
seen it from every angle.
Yeah.
Other than maybe actually a driver, and he's done a little bit of driving, not in NASCAR, but he's seen it from an engineering standpoint. He has seen it from an owner, from a driver, and I think he'd be perfect.
Yeah. Another one that rings a bell would be Chackenhouse.
Chackenhouse.
And not to say that I suggest that he don't need to be crew chiefing anymore. He's probably got a lot of years left in him doing that, but. Once he's beyond that stage of his life, I think that Chad could fill that role very well too. He's done a lot, he did a lot of driving in his younger years, and he's been around the sport and accomplished great things and seen it from a lot of angles too. So.
Bottom line here, guys, the future's bright.
All right, well, hey, Larry, I don't have any other questions for you. I love having you on the show. I appreciate you stopping by.
It's been fun, Larry, man.
No, I've enjoyed it. Gosh, we had 30 minutes. That flew by, which we always say when it flies by, it means we're having fun and enjoying it.
Usually when me and Larry, Josh, are working together, someone's after 30 seconds is telling us to shut up. We don't get 30 minutes to actually talk.
And I'm going to steal your line. This is arguably the best podcast we've done all day, right?
Arguably. You could argue that. You could argue that. For sure.
Very cool. All right, well, John, I think that we'll take a quick break here in a minute and come back and do our clear to close. But first, just want to thank you again, Larry, for stopping in. I wish we had hours to sit here and talk, because I'm sure that we could all have some great conversation and stories.
We'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
We'd love to have you back on. So appreciate it. And folks, hope you enjoyed it, and we will be back in 30 seconds after a word from our sponsor.
Duckworths Grill and Tap House is your neighborhood restaurant. Good food, good friends, a huge selection of craft beers on tap, not to mention the weekly and daily food specials. 5 locations in the Charlotte metro area. Make sure to go down and check out your local Duckworths. All right, Josh, it is time now for our Clear to Close segment, where we kind of close up the show and also give you some information about Anchor Real Estate and also our production company, R2RE. Racing 2 Real Estate is a full-service video production company. If you like the podcast here, you can come into our studio. We can provide you with video and audio services. And also, if you're interested in a Matterport 3D scan or a cutting-edge video production to help you sell your home, we can provide all those services to you at Racing 2 Real Estate.
Yeah, Racing 2 Real Estate, R2RE Productions. So a couple of things for me quickly, clear to close. We mentioned it last week. I just want to plug it again. We got the Lake Norman Humane event coming up here in Mooresville, North Carolina. That is on November 7th. It's a Tuesday evening, if I'm not mistaken. It is at the Lime Tree Plantation, like I said, here in Mooresville. Tickets are $50 per person. We're going to have a live auction. We're going to have a silent auction. We're going to have 50-50 raffles. We're going to have music. We're going to have drinks. We're going to have appetizers. And we're going to have a lot of fun. So if you are in or around our area or want to make a trip to our area, please reach out to us. We have tickets for sale. And then lastly, we have our Wind Down Wednesday event here at the offices of Anchor Real Estate. That is coming up this coming Wednesday, the 10th of October, so just a day from now. And we will be partnering up with Johnny Brusco's for some good pizza, some good pasta, some. I love their garlic knots.
Garlic knots are fantastic.
Yeah, really good.
And
so
beer and wine too.
Yeah, beer and wine, and it's open to the public, open to anyone in the area. Swing by our offices here in Mooresville, North Carolina. That will be a fun time. We got Talladega coming up. We've already talked about that with Larry Mack. That'll be exciting. So looking forward to it. John, just want to thank you again quickly, co-host. For Racing to Real Estate, we got Paul back there in the background. You can't see him, but he's our producer and editor, and we thank you, Paul. And that's it, folks. Racing to Real Estate, episode 5 is a wrap.